Hello, this is Kim Nelson. This video is going to feature how to do some quick maquetting, how to do some sketching in 3D. I don't have much time, so I'm going to put together as much as I can with the time I have. Since this is for jewelry, I'll use the favored jewelry motif here. And I'll sketch in a quick heart. I just rebuilt the curve to give it few enough points to allow easy modification. I've mirrored the curve over with history so that I only have to draw one half the curve and the other half will update for me automatically. I have curvature graph on because why not have curvature graph on? Making sure that I overlap top and bottom so that when I'm done I can just trim it up. Oh, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trim the parent curve, and that'll update your child automatically. So there's my first heart. Okay. I'm going to make a copy of this and put it on another layer. If I have time, I will come back and show another approach to what I'm going to do here. Okay, I want to quickly draw some, sketch in some orthographic information. I don't expect it will be accurate at the end of the day, but it will be close enough. Okay. Yeah. Maybe something like that. A little more raise to it, given the size of the original heart. Don't need as much of a sidewall as I have there. And carry that information around. Do a miter curve. And then carry information around. Like so. I'm going to figure that the fattest or highest part of this is going to be somewhere in there, maybe a little higher. And that will suffice. For 3 rough views of this object. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly do a maquette using that information, going with the same similar process we followed with the dome ring. Put these on there, perspective layers, top, right, front. Join, join. Put this one in position first. So to get that in position, I need to rotate it upward. So activate my front seaplane. And just end snap will do. Part I don't want to move is the base, so that works. Activate my right plane, project to seaplane. Okay. Rotate this into position. So going to the right seaplane. Once again, the base is what I don't want to move. Shift key, keep it going 90 degrees. Activate the front seaplane, project to seaplane. And I now have basically a kit that I can use to do a quick maquette of this form. Okay, so how I could do that would be to, I'll just extrude this straight out. Both sides, solid option yes. Only criteria is that it's bigger than the piece. And I'll extrude this, both sides, solid yes. Make it a different color to keep things interesting. Going to do a solid intersection. And Boolean intersection failed because we have a commonality right here where these two are just barely touching. Best solution to this would be to just do a little non-uniform scale so that it's a little wider. Okay, so now I've got that item. I'll go ahead and change seaplanes by habit. That's a closed planar curve, so Rhino would figure out the extrusion direction all on its own. But I'm a creature of habit. So now I've got this and Boolean intersection again. And it failed again because it doesn't like the commonality of the forms again. So this time I will non-uniform scale it. This way a little bit. And maybe, okay, the gumball is in the wrong position for what I want to do, but fine. I don't care. I don't want to encourage you guys to do the gumball anyway. So Boolean intersection. There we go. I just deleted the gumball. Probably shouldn't do that. I tell you the honest to goodness truth, don't even know what those mean. Love you, Rhino 6. Yeah, those exclamation points are just going to be left there forever and ever and ever. So, no, I have no idea. So to keep the video tidy, I will try to not show those, try not to use a gumball. I don't like using it anyway. So, anyway, there's your basic maquette. Okay? That's one way to make a maquette. That sketches that heart in 3 dimensions for you. Now, of course, once you make a drawing of this, okay, once you've done that, you would need to come into these if you were taking these into Photoshop to work with or using them for tracing. You'd probably want to leave these lines here for reference, but you'd want to change them with your pencil in Photoshop. Same thing here. You'd probably want to leave this as information that you could then soften with a pencil in Photoshop. This 3/4 view, it's kind of useful. Obviously, it would need a lot of tidying up with a pencil to be useful. But that's how you would use that. Okay. So, there's back our basic maquette. Okay, actually I'm going to leave that around. I don't want to get rid of it just as yet. Put it in storage. Okay, so continuing. Another way to create that similar idea without using such a blocky approach, for lack of a better way of putting it, I'm actually going to turn off the other views except for top, is to work with a projection on a surface and do control point editing. So I'm going to start with my heart here. I'm going to record history, and I'm going to copy it to the center. I want to do this so that later, if I want to change the shape of the heart, I can do it here, where I can still see it clearly, and it'll update in location. I'm going to create a surface. The easiest way to create this surface, a flat surface, is to go to my curve tools, do a rectangle from center. and just create a box. I want it to be fairly close to the heart itself, so pop on some control points, grab the top ones, pull them down, grab the bottom ones, pull them down, turn on the gumball, and pull them in. Like so. So now we have the curve, flat rectangle curve. Remember, all surfaces in Rhino are just a rectangle of infinitely thin rubber material, so I'm going to use that surface and make a surface from planar curves. I can throw away the outline curve. Then I'm going to rebuild this into something that I can modify pretty easily. Okay, so I'm going to want odd number of points so that I have rows down the center. I'm probably not going to want more than 7 points, so I'll rebuild. On my keyboard, that shortcut is F5, but you can also find it right here. Let's make them 7. Give me a minute, please. Rhino, I know. So 7. 7. And 3 and 3 is actually okay. I don't mind that for what I'm using it for. Turn on my points and see if I like that. That didn't actually give me what I asked for. So back to the drawing board. See, it gave me 4. Okay. 7, 7, 3, 3. Yeah, for what I'm going to do, that's fine. Okay, so this is my surface. I'm going to bring back my maquette for a minute. Or I could use my views. That would be a more realistic thing to do. And I'm going to move this surface up to where it's close to the top of that. And then I'm going to project this heart onto that surface with history. So project curve. I've got to be in the top seaplane, because project always shoots perpendicular to the current seaplane. Shoot it straight up onto that surface. And I want history. And it's important that delete input is no. If you have delete input yes in this case and it throws away the original curve, the history will be broken. Okay, so now we have our surface in place. I'm going to turn on control points. In fact, I'm going to lock. I'm going to put this on the same top view as the others. I'm going to lock that top so that I can't mess with it accidentally. Turn on my control points and use that same method we worked with the dome ring. Grab some points and move them down. Now, last week I used the gumball. Doesn't really matter. But I'm actually organizing in the wrong direction. Since we're working with the right view, I'll go into my right seaplane, and I'll play with these control points. Okay, something like that. And this allows me to try and capture that curvature in a more organic way. It's not as fast as the other route we used. But I notice how, because I used history when I projected that curve, that every time I move these control points, the heart shape follows along. Okay, let's say that's pretty good. I could make it better by adding some control points here and pulling that further down, but that's okay for me for now. I'm going to, it is only a maquette after all, it's a sketch. The idea is for this to be fairly quick. Now I'm going to bring in the front view. And enter, in case you were wondering what I was doing there. Move enter. Actually, those two rows don't look too bad. I'll just take the innermost rows there. Looked pretty good, so I'm just going to grab the two outside rows and move them down. What's important is I don't move the center row very much, or I'm going to change that side view that I just fixed. Make sure you're careful with your selection so you don't get, so you get all the points you intend to get and none of the ones you don't intend to get. Okay, and now you start to see some of the realities of the form that the other method doesn't really allow you to see, which is why I like doing it this way. And that is that just a generalized pulling down, you can see how these points ended up way out here. I mean, it's okay because that's where the heart cuts them off. But you can see how it changes your view of how things are working. If I want it symmetrical, I've got to keep my selection symmetrical. And I want that whole row, so I use the shortcut from last week over here. Got to bring that way down low. Okay, now for both the side to side and the tip here, I'm going to need more control points, but you never want to add more control points until you need them, because it makes modeling more difficult. In fact, before I go and add more control points, I am going to do some things that I think are going to make it nicer without adding more points yet. Once you add points, every selection you do becomes more difficult. And I just want a more gradual taper off here in the front. I have these bumps out here. Now, while the heart drawing isn't even on those bumps, they do affect what's going on. So I'm looking at each row of points now and using symmetrical picking when I need to. Trying to get a nice soft curve. And this sort of work is much easier to do with a few control points than it is with a bunch, which is once again why I'm avoiding adding points right now. Come out here, I have the same thing. I'm going to grab these two bumps and lower them. And lower it. Okay, I'm all right with that. So now I'm going to insert points. So edit, control points. You want to insert a knot. Okay, you can see that little iso curve dragging along the surface. That shows me where it's going to be. Okay, when I put it down. I do have an option to pick symmetrical. If I do that, it'll add points at both ends, which in this case isn't a bad idea. You'll see that when you insert knot, it doesn't go exactly where you think it's going to go. It's really about trying to keep the curved surface smooth and editable. If you insert a row of points, it'll do everything it needs to do to keep the surface the way it is. But if it does that, it changes the weighting of the points, which is all advanced speak to say the surface becomes less manageable from a control point editing perspective. So from a control point editing perspective, we want to just add, knots, not points. Not insert points, it's a mathematical term. Wish it was easier to sum up than that. I'm going to toggle this into the other direction. And I need a row of points here and here. And I know for a fact, if I want to do much with the cleft of the heart, I'm going to need rows of points in here. So this is now a much more sophisticated surface that I'm working with. Okay? That does allow me to do more controlled point editing of the surface. And I'm not going to go crazy with this. I just want to show you. Now, I'm being very careful when controlling which way they go. I want these points to go straight up and down, so I only have a front seaplane active. If I was in the top seaplane, they would have moved this direction, and I don't want any movement in that direction. I won't be using my top seaplane for any of these adjustments. Okay? I can see that I'm going to actually want to move that point and the one next to it. And I'm not afraid of being extreme. I'm going to get some strange things going, but at this point I don't care. That's fine with me. I do want to have a sense that at some point it's coming through this cross-section. Now, it's important to understand that this cross-section in real life isn't in the middle of the heart. It's at the highest point in the heart. It's actually about here. And if you put it there, you can see that actually I'm already higher than that. That's better. I'm also going to pick up these points and these points, which are the symmetrical twin. Actually, not so much this one. Basically the next row in the same order that I did before, where I bumped these up to try and fill in some of this feeling right here. Do the same thing here. And maybe I'll take the innermost one of that and back it off a little bit. Sometimes it gets hard to see. Yeah. Okay, I think that's what it is. I'm moving quick, I'm being sketchy. These two are now too high. So this takes a little longer, but it's more controlled. And what you get in the end is usually something that is a little more aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so that's how I could bring that up. I'm actually going to bring these down. I'm watching my curve here, and I almost move side to side. You got to move straight up and down. I like that better. It's costing me up here, okay? But this may not be a perfect front view. Remember, I sketched it, so that's all right. Now, the last thing I'm going to show with this surface is that if I wanted to, going into the right seaplane just so I can have the right directionality when I move these. I can move those down so that I start to get a cleft in the heart. Maybe I don't want it to come that far out. But maybe I do want it to be sharper in here or deeper. Okay, so there we go. I've got to finish this off, so I'll just show you how I would then use this as a maquette. Grab my curve, which has been locked. Oh, by the way, when I was showing you about using the master curve, I could, for example, now take on the gumball and it would update all of those curves. Okay? So I still have control over everything over here, which is nice. I'm not going to use it for this exercise, though. I'm going to go ahead and trim this surface. I'm going to take this curve, which is the exact same curve, because the curve didn't change from the top. I projected it from the top, so this curve on the surface is the exact same shape. I'm going to just do a simple extrusion. And then I will trim that off. Okay? And that gives me a different effect, okay? If I wanted to, I could fillet this corner. But actually for a maquette, I wouldn't. I want to see this line. In the finished piece, that line won't be there. But I want to see that Rhino wants this swelling to be there so I can decide what, if anything, I want to do about it in my final piece. So there we go. Two different approaches. I can go ahead and join these together and tap planar holes. So they're both solid little cookies. And you can see they're both valid. But this does give you more of an idea of what your heart would look like. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.